afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Thank you to our panelists. Thank you to those of you at home. My name is Beth Freeman. I'm the Career Readiness Coordinator for the Kearney School District and also a part of the Northland Education and Business Alliance, also known as NEBA. As a group, we have come together to plan this event that has been just amazing so far today. And this is the last session, so can't imagine it's going to take a turn. We've had so many people participate, and we're pretty excited about all the knowledge that our industry professionals have shared so far today. NEBA is a network of education and business organizations in Clay and Platte counties, whose vision is to promote and provide business-driven educational opportunities for you, our next generation of business leaders. I will be your host, but there are also a couple of other NEBA members helping along the way. Natalie Barner is from Park Hill School District, and she's going to take over in a little while and do some question and answer session. And then Amy Washam from Northwest Missouri State University. She's our techie girl. She's helping a little bit behind the scenes. So thank you to you for helping. And before I introduce our panelists, I want to give you a quick bit of information about how this will go. This session will be 40 minutes, so right at 1:40 we will need to stop. And I mentioned that Natalie will be posing some questions. Those of you at home, if you look at the bottom of your screen, and you might need to hover, you'll see a Q&A button, and we are encouraging you to ask whatever you need to know. Give us some questions to ask our industry professionals, and we can't guarantee, unfortunately, that we can get to all of them because as of now, there's about 40 of you watching from home, but it doesn't hurt to ask. We will do our best to try to get to all of those. One other thing, or actually a couple other things. One is that this will be recorded and it will be posted on the NEBA YouTube channel later, maybe later tonight, maybe within 24 hours. Also that after the session is over, we would love for you to hang around for just a second, and you should see a survey pop up. Give us some feedback on what you liked, what didn't work so well, what you'd like to see with future events that are similar to this. All right, so now I would like to introduce our panelists. We've got Julie Heckman from Right Triangle, and we've got Cara Hess from Dazium Design Solutions, and they will be our professionals that are going to give you lots of good information during this session. So we will start with just maybe a short introduction on their background, education, professional backgrounds, and then we are going to open it up to questions from you, the audience. So don't forget about that bubble down there at the bottom and give us your questions. So Julie, if you wouldn't mind starting and giving us an introduction about any kind of background information that might help understand your position and what you've been up to.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Julie Heckman, and I have a Bachelor's of Science in Education, actually, from the University of Missouri, and then a Master's of Arts in Mathematics from the University of Idaho. And so my background is I started as a high school teacher at Oak Park. I was there for 4 years, and then I transitioned to a financial analyst role, which financial analyst quickly transitioned into data engineer. So that's where I've been for the last probably 10 years. I have worked for 3 or 4 different companies. I'm now in a consulting company. And so I work with a variety of companies across the KC Metro. But basically, when someone asks what a data engineer is, it's understanding what data is, figuring out where it needs to go, figuring out who needs to be able to use it and at what speeds that needs to happen, and then making that happen. So it's anything from back end to front end to using third-party software, whole gamut of things.
All right, thank you. That list sounds like nothing that I could be able to do. My brain does not work like that. So I'm glad that there are people in the world who can handle those things. Cara, would you like to give us a quick introduction?
Yeah, hi. My name is Cara Hess. I started with, my education was actually in graphic design and business. And I started my business very soon after college, actually, and I've been in business for about 20 years, actually 21 years. And we course, have moved and changed with the times. So technology and web design has always been a part of it. On the technology side, we do websites, website design, web application design, web hosting, and platform and business application development. Even on the people side, we do a lot of content development. We do customer experience design. And on the marketing side, we even do social media campaigns, Google marketing. So a whole gamut of things. We've always been a small business in Kansas City, always been at least around 7 people. And we spend a lot of time managing client expectations, keeping up with all the challenges of deadlines and efficiencies. And one of the most important things that we've done is change over the years, because 20 years is a long time, and web design was a lot different than it is now. And to constantly keep yourself up to date and changing along with what needs of the customers are versus what technology brings has been probably the biggest challenge, and the most benefit to this business as over time. So, what we do from a perspective of expectations is just making sure that the clients meet the job meets the deadline and the client expectations and everything from, and again, and so a lot of it is holistic design. From when we do web and social, we tie it together into one platform and package that client can understand and really help build their business.
All right, thank you so much. So I'm going to hand it over to Natalie, and we are going to take a peek at the questions. I already see quite a few on here, so keep them coming. Those of you at home, let us know what would benefit you as far as what we need to be discussing during this session.
All right, thank you. I think one of the things I heard you both talk about is just the change. And Julie, you changed careers, like completely changed careers from what you originally set out to do. Is there a reason why you changed and why you went the direction you did? Or did you just kind of continue to find your passion and you landed where you are?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I actually started my college experience as an engineer. So I have changed even from there. And the one thing that has been constant through my career change is math. I have always loved math. Calculus was my favorite subject in high school. Math is my jam. I love it. And so for me, it was trying to figure out how I could do math in my job and love it. And while I loved working with kids, I did not love teaching math to them because, as you all know, not everyone loves math in high school like I did. And so that was just a really big challenge for me personally. And so it was really trying to figure out, like, how can I use my love of math and do something that I enjoy? And so it just took trial and error. And I think that's, when I give advice to people who are like, I have kids and they're talking about what they want to be when they grow up. And to me, it's, you don't ever have to decide what you want to be, right? You just you try things out. And if you don't like it, you kind of pivot in a different direction and you keep moving forward, even if it's kind of in a zigzag. So I just, I think there is a lot of pressure to pick a major or, pick a career path. And I think as long as you keep your options open and you're just doing things to constantly learn and improve yourself, that you're going to find good opportunities as long as you're passionate about what you do.
Great, thank you. And Cara, you said you went to school for graphic design originally. Did you have your sights set on opening your own business right away? And if you did, how did that kind of happen? Or if you didn't, I should say.
I didn't have it set on opening business right away. It really just happened. I'm going to echo what Julie said. She said it very well. You just keep your sights on learning. You find the right people. You surround yourself with the right people, and you just keep moving. I was lucky enough to get a good job from a very good friend of mine, and I just said, "Hey, I love this, and I want to keep going at this." But change has been a little bit different for me in that I didn't force a change. I felt like I rolled with the change of technology. If my clients need this, I'm going to figure out how to do it. If my clients need a website, I'm going to figure out how to code it and I'm going to get it done. and that level of not only self-explanation as to what it takes to keep going, what it takes to never give up and keep a business going and keep employees, paid. That was extremely motivating for me. And change is so much a part of that. I mean, what I do now didn't even exist when I started my business, really. And so I'm saying the same with Julie. I mean, data didn't exist the way it is now, like it did, 20 years ago. So it constantly changed. And I think that's also, even more now true than when I graduated from college, because you don't stay in a job, you just learn with a job and you move to the next one. And the way you surround yourself with the right people is just so important. I mean, my business is built on relationships.
Great, thank you. This question is for both of you. What does a typical day in the life at your job look like? And how do you organize that time within your day? So Julie, we'll start with you.
Yeah, that's a great question. So during COVID, it's a little strange. I actually started a new job in June as a consultant. So when I was in a traditional job with a company as a W-2 employee and, you know, going to the office every day, it was a little more structured. Even during COVID, when I was with a company, it was a little more structured. You know, we get in, all the companies I've been in typically operate with what they call an Agile methodology, which is following kind of a Scrum. And so you have different meetings that you have throughout the day and throughout the week to help you plan and organize. And then you'd have periods of time where you'd work on projects independently, maybe collaborate with a coworker, and then, you know, potentially have meetings to look at new projects or meetings to prioritize your current projects, meetings to discuss an issue you're having. So it's pretty flexible. Now as a consultant, you know, my days are kind of up in the air. I don't always know what's going to happen. I might have a client that comes up with something last minute and I have to kind of rearrange my schedule and figure that out. I do feel in a consultant role, and I'm sure Kara will agree with me owning a small business, is that you just have to be flexible. You know, I don't really have, I use Trello, which is an organizing, you know, tool online. So I always have things I can be doing, and I have, you know, priorities that are shifting. I have found that you have to be incredibly self-organized in this type of role and motivated. You know, there's times when I don't check in with another colleague for a couple of days and I'm just doing my own thing. And then they're like, oh, do you have this done? Yep, I'm working on that, you know? And so my days it's not at all like I imagined, I guess, you know, going to work in an IT or tech job. But I really do love the flexibility and kind of the unknown. Like there's no routine. So.
Kara, what's a typical day in your life look like?
Kind of echoing what Julie said. I mean, I can't overemphasize the need for deadlines and efficiencies. It changes depending on what that client needs at the time. And you jump in, you absorb what they need, you figure it out, and you puzzle your day together depending on what that client expectations are. I used to have actually I still do have a 1 to 10 scale. And my 1 to 10 scale was, you know, this is a 1 level job, I just have to get it done. And a 10 level job was, I'm going to have asked all these questions and put a whole different range of creativity and innovation in it. And every job seemed to range in those 1 to 10 scale. When I did that, that really helped me prioritize my day, because if it's a 1 job, I just had to get it done. And I really had to isolate myself and just concentrate. But if it's a 10 level job, I need to bring people in. I've got to have meetings and understand what that means and why, and prioritize my employees based around, you know, let's really put our heads together and try to figure this out. With COVID, obviously everybody's gone virtual except for me. I do come to the office, so nobody's here with me, but everybody else is virtual. I didn't like working from home. I much prefer a very structured, get up, have a routine, come to work, go home. I was able to still do this in the office building that I'm in, which I was very grateful for. I'm not really around people here. It's just real simple. So if I was to organize my day at all I try to do is say, okay, morning, I'm going to work on administrative stuff and meetings. I try to make my meetings in the morning, and I try to make my afternoons more structured on projects or product or development. And somehow that has really helped me, because I jump in and I get the email and then I can put those emails off till the next morning. Most clients, I have found that if you don't respond at least in 24 hours, at least your response needs to be, I got it, I'll get back to you. That really helps people keep up with their day, because you put yourself in their shoes. They're under the same deadlines that you are, the same priorities, the same problems. And I always try to empathize with them, saying, I really did get this. I really will get to it. And even if I don't have an answer, just say, I don't know, I will be in touch.
Yeah, great. Students, if you are listening and you heard Julie talk about Trello, it's Trello. It is wonderful. I highly recommend it when you are going off to college, or if you're in high school and you're a good note taker and you want to switch things from like a to-do column to a completed column, it's great for those type A personalities. Cara, you both mentioned building relationships with clients and stuff. When you have an unhappy client, how have you learned to work around that? And how have you learned to talk with them when they are unhappy with what you've either given them or the product, and what has worked?
Cara, I'll let you go first on this one.
Okay. So you always are going to have that. It's always going to be the case. I think conflict management is, going back to the people side, it's one of the most important things to learn. You always will have that. I have found that when a client gives me feedback, whether that's good or bad, especially if it's bad, you know, they want to keep that relationship. Most of the time when people have given me feedback that they were unhappy with something, I celebrated that, because that's when somebody, you know, when somebody really wants the relationship to continue. It's been the hardest with when people haven't said anything. And so then you've got to jump in and solicit feedback with what did it work, and just basically ask questions at the end of the job and figure out where it was. With the big application designs that I've done, sometimes they've been over a year long. That's a constant question and answer to figure out if they're okay, what their expectations are, especially for clients that don't really understand technology. They see technology as the tool, but not the development side. You know, they really don't see it until they're working with it, even though maybe for the first 3 months we're behind the scenes and in back-end development, and keeping expectations and their understanding of what we're doing is so important. So when people have given me some constructive criticism, I've always done the, overwork. You just work harder to make sure that you can live up to expectations. In some ways, sometimes you're giving away work, sometimes you're not. You're prioritizing that based on their client need. And you're trying to understand why they're having a problem. And really, it may not even be about you. It may be about the stress that they're under. And what you can do, and what I can personally do, what I can do from a business perspective, what I can do from my employees' perspective. Really, anything to help manage that relationship is incredibly important.
Anything else to add, Julie, to that?
Yeah, I'll just echo, Cara said it really well. And I think that those are skills that I personally didn't learn till later in life, especially because I worked for bigger companies and I wasn't necessarily in charge of my own projects. Even as someone who's not in a leadership role, those skills are still really, really important with managing relationships, even if your customers are basically internal people. So at previous jobs, my customers have been basically my colleagues, or my boss or my boss's colleagues, and understanding how to listen and solve those problems is just so important. And I think one of the key lessons I learned early on in my career when I was working at a financial company, I basically was helping other financial analysts get things that they needed that they couldn't do in Excel. So, I was writing code and programs and stuff, and I would get so frustrated at them. So I was like, why don't you understand that this doesn't make any sense? And I was talking to my boss about it, and it kind of dawned on me that it wasn't my job to get frustrated, right? Like, I might be frustrated, but it was my job to help them figure out things. And so just because I wasn't sitting in front of a computer coding didn't mean I wasn't doing my job. Helping your clients kind of really work through and understand what they're asking, because they might not even know what they're asking you to do, is so important. And so just kind of having that mentality of it's not about necessarily the project sometimes, it's about the relationship, is just really key.
Awesome, thank you. You both have mentioned coding a couple times, and we have a few questions in the chat about coding specifically. And, Cara, you went to school for graphic design, not for coding. And so was it self-taught? Was it something that you had to go back and take classes for? And then same thing with you, Julie, after she's done.
Yeah, all my coding experience is self-taught. So that when I say self-taught, then I'm not certified in anything, so I'm all open source. So it's really not difficult to do that. It's very possible. In fact, a lot of the IT, when I would hire developers, a lot were self-taught. I do recommend getting some certification like AWS at this point. Any kind of cloud-based certifications are really good right now. So I'm not necessarily recommending you should always do self-taught, Microsoft certifications, if you're going to a large corporation, are really important. But for a small business perspective and small business working with small business, it was certainly sufficient with what I was doing. And again, there's so much information out there to be able to teach. Really just takes initiative. And even, even if you do get certified in some of the other things, having a holistic knowledge of everything, even more now, is so important. I know you need to put blinders on and specialize in one particular thing, but you need to be able to understand the prioritization and talk the talk for everything. So I don't know much about data, but I got to know the prioritization of what it means to my clients and why, and how does it interact with, so that when she's using technical data language, I've got to be able to have that vernacular. I have to know what she's talking about so that I can plug it into my specialty and expertise. Data from a marketing perspective, data from a technology perspective or technical perspective, and data from the advanced analytics people perspective, and then everything in between that. So it's been really important to always have a lifetime learning type of approach to a career for everything you do. It will constantly change.
Julie?
Yeah, so I actually had a couple of formal programming classes when I was in college and in grad school. And also in grad school, I had to use programming languages to accomplish some of my tasks or projects for math. So while I wouldn't say I have any sort of formal training, I did get some of the fundamental theoretical concepts. However, all of my actual programming knowledge has come from needing to be able to do something. And so I go out there and research it, figure it out. I've also had really great mentors and been able to work at companies where I can learn from people much more experienced than me, who are willing to, give their ideas about patterns and software development design concepts. Each company you go to or each even client is going to have their own theories and you're going to have to adapt. So, I've been in 3 different software companies and each of them has their own way of doing, DevOps, their own way of doing deployment, their own way of doing, their design patterns. And so it's totally okay to not know what they're talking about as long as you're willing to learn. And I've had various bosses say, I don't care if you know Python, I don't care if you know C, as long as you know some programming language, what you know can translate to a different one. And so, if you don't know one and you're interested, pick one and just start messing around with it. There's tons of free tools out there. There's tons of free classes. There's even some really cool, online tutorials and stuff that are free right now just because of COVID. And so it's a neat time just to be able to go in and start playing around with something. But I think, even for software developers that have a degree in software development, they don't stop learning there, right? They're constantly taking new jobs and learning new things and new technologies are coming out. I mean, the amount of stuff that AWS puts out on a daily basis there's no way you could learn all of it. Yeah. But just starting to play with it gives you a sense of what's out there. And then you kind of learn what you need to and learn what you have to. And eventually you start building this skill set that allows you to kind of figure out what you need to know for whatever job you need to do.
Awesome. Can you talk a little bit about what AWS is? You both have mentioned that a few times in case we have students on here that are unsure of what that is. Either one of you is fine.
Amazon Web Services. It's
okay.
Cloud-based. It's cloud first. All corporations are going cloud first, and what that means both from an application management standpoint to networking to, gosh, it touches everything.
And so do students need to have a degree to be able to get certifications, like you said, an AWS certification, or is that something they could pursue right after high school without a college degree? Or do you know?
I don't know that question.
I think you can pursue it just, okay. I don't even think you'd have to be a high school graduate, honestly. I think you just, there's different courses out there, or you can just, you could pay for a course and then take the test, or you could just get the test, what would that be called? Like the curriculum from the test, figure it out on your own and then take it. Yeah, it's not something that you have to have any sort of degree to do.
Someone is asking if they wanted to go into web design, do you have a specific major or type of program they should study when they go to declare a major in college?
So do me jump? I can't jump in?
Yeah, that's fine.
So when you say web design, can I clarify? I'm going to maybe narrow that down a little bit because that's
all the question said was web design. So I'm assuming they're talking to you probably in the line of work that you have been speaking of.
Okay, so I'm going to split web design into a couple different things. There's from a small business perspective, web design is going to be, you've got to really know everything about what that small business needs. So that's design, that's if they want a CMS at all, like a content management system, if they want a content management system, if they want static code, why they want it, if is open source even going to be good? If it's open source, we focus on PHP, Java, JavaScript, React. If they do have a combination of those two, we can do a content management system and then a back-end application that supports and works with a content management system. So React can work with WordPress, for example, or even just do PHP and the strict PHP can work with a WordPress front end. So, gosh, you know, I do particularly like WordPress for clients because I know it's it's been around a long time and it has some warts, but I tell you what, I think it's one of the best continuously run, plug-in, managed and developed front end for clients for small business. And it's very simple, but I can also add a lot of application design and platform design on the back end and have them talk, and have those two things talk to each other. And we've had a lot of luck with that. So if that, hopefully that answers the question. From a web design perspective, there's also, a lot of the customer experience in the front end. I love that part of it too. Why are people clicking and how do you build the content around that? So there's so many parts to that, but hopefully I answered the question.
So is that more of a IT degree or more of a graphic design like you have, or is there a web design specific degree that you guys know of?
So I don't believe there's, sorry, Julie.
No, go ahead.
I don't believe there's a web specific. Graphic design is, again, so big. If I was to say web computer science or more on the computer side would probably be where I would head. Graphic design, not so much. Graphic design is going to be more that customer experience, almost, correct me, jump in, Julie, if you want to, but
you're on the right track.
Completely different way. I think in a small business like mine, a lot of times, sometimes I've lumped those two together, but really they're ideally best two separate roles. And as long as tech people can talk to designers and designers can talk to tech people, that I feel like when two heads are there, it's actually the best of both worlds.
I think too that there's roles in software and in tech that you don't really think of as being roles. So, I worked with people who maybe they have a computer science degree, but they found out it was not their jam. Like they did not enjoy it. They thought they weren't very good at it. There's all sorts of project management roles and product owner roles where you get to basically help design the product and help design the application, but without physically coding it, right? And that's kind of what Kara was talking about too, like that, the graphic design front end, really wireframe user experience stuff. So there's a ton of things you can do in web and IT that aren't necessarily hands-on keyboard coding. And it helps to have that language. So, like, even if you're going to do a business degree, maybe you could minor in computer science if you're interested in it, but maybe don't want to do it full time, because that would be a huge leg up if you wanted to work for a tech company, but maybe not necessarily do the actual application development kind of thing. So I think, software engineering is going to be more like the hardware and compilers and really the theories behind what optimizes code, what makes it work faster. It's going to be very mathy, very heavy in that kind of stuff. So if you're leaning more to like web and front end, definitely the computer science route, but also don't be afraid to, kind of combine things together like business and computer science, or, even graphic design and computer science. I don't even know what kind of majors are out there anymore. Honestly, it's been so long since I was in college. But I know that they have a ton of new stuff and they're trying to innovate all the time to meet people where, where the career fields are going.
Yeah.
Can I add to that real quick? And because I just thought about this after Julie started talking, but one of my clients is also completely flipping over their whole technology. One of my clients has about 500 developers, and they have completely flipped over. And really, honestly, what they're looking for is people with artificial intelligence experience, end-to-end automation, machine learning, cybersecurity. Those things from a corporate side are, as well as cloud and data, are just everything right now. Because the tech people are so hard to find that everybody's got to automate to survive.
Yeah. There's a specific question down here that does go along with the cybersecurity. It said, what are some apps or programs that could teach coding for cybersecurity? Currently using M1MO, and I was wondering if there's any superior programs to use. I don't know what that is, so I hope I said it right.
That's a great question. And I actually do not know much about cybersecurity at all. I worked right across from the security guy at my last job, and he was awesome. But I know Northwest has a cybersecurity program because we had an intern from them.
Do you know anything about cybersecurity, Cara?
I don't know this. I don't know the specific programs they use. All I really know about cybersecurity is I do a lot of report and technical writing for cybersecurity departments, but oh gosh, the technical side of what they do, no. And it's funny because we kind of joke with them that really nobody cares about cybersecurity until something happens. It's like nobody really wants to know what they do, but it's as some statistics are staggering at the number, of money spent around cybersecurity. I think $2 trillion just 2 years ago. It's just amazing. So it's
a great field to go into.
Yeah, huge.
Right now.
All right, we're gonna have to, we have about 7 minutes left. So I have a few questions that I want to ask you. If you have a favorite project or like the most interesting project or thing that you've learned in your field, and Julie, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so I've done a ton of really cool projects, but I just had this one recently that came about. It was kind of a pro bono project for my boss. He used to dive at the University of Kansas. And so the dive coach there, he's in touch with him, and he wanted to basically, what I'm going to call Moneyball dive recruiting. If you've ever seen that movie, it was basically the Oakland A's were using statistics and machine learning and all sorts of cool math to figure out how they could optimize their recruiting and their players and get the best bang for their buck. And so I helped him build an app that pulled down all the dive scores from since 2004 from this one website. And now he is going to go through and create algorithms on it to figure out what divers have the best chance of succeeding in college based on this pool. And so that was a really fun project. And it was for a university, and it's kind of neat because those aren't necessarily people you think of as being super technical and super into data and statistics, but I mean, it just goes to show that it's used everywhere. And so, yeah.
Cool.
Do you have a favorite project, Cara?
I'm working on one now. Actually, it's we're at the tail end of it. It's I'll mention that one, but we've been working on about a year and a half. So it's for a small business here. It's for a woman who is developing a fundraising business to support small business locally. So instead of if a school needs to do a fundraiser, they can use local businesses to buy to sell products. So it couldn't have been more timely. I mean, as we help local and small retailers survive during this COVID season. So it really, and we put a whole back into it, everything from, a login for all the organizations, a login for the people selling, a login for the people buying, and user dashboards for each one of those different types of roles. And then we also plan to do logins for those retailers to actually sell their products. So it's been really fun to put together. And we just finished the whole reporting aspect of this, which is big. So the data reporting side of it, which blew my mind a little bit. Good thing it started really small, but the reporting side would be how many people sold and when and how much money they made and why, and for the retailers and all those rules. So it was really detailed. Didn't make a lot of money on it, which is fine. I felt like other jobs paid for that one because I was really supporting her vision and her direction. She's just an amazing entrepreneur, and I think there's a lot of potential for that. So I potentially kind of ended up taking this on as a pet project, enjoyed the heck out of it, and it's called Sunflower Fundraising. So just to plug her. But it's she's really got a good vision, and I think it helps and supports the community really well. And it was really fun to build a back end and a front end together and put it together. So enjoyed that.
Awesome. Thank you. I learned a lot today on the back end of it. So I appreciate all the information myself. What is a typical starting salary in your field if you know what it is?
I think it's highly variable.
Yeah, I don't know. I've hired developers just in small business. I think you could expect the range between 50 and 80, depending on roles and experiences. I've started at 50 when they literally had no experience whatsoever, and were able to learn in the field. 80 if they're walking away with a computer, science degree out of school. So that's about range where I was, but I don't know.
Yeah, I would say in a I've worked at smaller startup companies. I've also worked at bigger companies, and I would say it's probably 60 to 80 would be your starting salary, depending on if you have a degree, or if you've had internship experience. But it's so highly variable. I mean, you can quickly get to six figures in a development role, depending on, what projects you're on, or if you're at a big company, a small company, if you move into a leadership role, that kind of stuff. I mean, it is one of those careers where you definitely can make significant money. But I wouldn't expect to necessarily like your first year out of college.
If you jump into that management role and you're good at communicating with people, that's where you jump in.
Yeah. We are going to have to wrap it up. Any last minute advice that you want to give these future students that will be going out into the world very soon?
I say just keep learning. Just always be learning. Be self-motivated, find a cool problem, dive into it. As you go to interview or you go start looking for internships and stuff, they're always going to ask you what you're working on at home. And it's absolutely okay not to have anything at home, but if you have a cool project, don't be afraid to share it. People just want to see what you're interested in. And so keep being interested and keep learning.
Great advice.
Keep your tech skills up, keep your people skills up. Conflict management, communication, and highly technical are, if you can combine those two and you can translate between those types of departments, you'll go far.
Great advice. Thank you, ladies. I'm going to turn it back over to Beth. I'm sorry if we didn't get to your questions, students. We still had quite a few in the chat, so I apologize.
Yeah, I want to thank our guests one more time, sharing their expertise. I know I learned a lot. I'm sure everybody at home learned a lot as well. And so I do want to remind you of a couple of things, you at home. First of all, if you'll stick around for a couple of seconds after we're finished here, you should see a survey. Again, we want to hear back from you. We want to know if you enjoyed this and what we can do to improve in the future, or, tell us it was perfect and we don't need to change anything. And then also, if you are watching from home and there were some other sessions that you were interested in that you were not able to watch live, you can go to the YouTube channel and get those probably within the next day or so. Also, you can go to the NEBA website, www.nebaworkskc.org, and you can get all sorts of information there as well. So thanks again for spending your time with us this afternoon, and have a great day.